You know that feeling, right? The second you start a workout, your chest starts pounding. We've all been there. But what is really going on inside your body in that split second? Well, today we're diving into the amazing science behind your heart's rhythm. And trust me, the real story is way cooler than you probably think. I mean, seriously, think about it. You just step onto the treadmill, maybe you start a light jog, and almost instantly your heart rate is climbing. It feels totally automatic. But what's the internal command that makes it happen so incredibly fast?
Yeah, it's definitely not like your body is just flicking an on switch for fast mode. It's more like this high-speed, super sophisticated conversation between your brain and your heart. It's a precisely controlled dance that adapts beat by single beat.
And to really understand this dance, you've got to meet the choreographer. And that would be your body's command center for everything that happens automatically, the autonomic nervous system. The ANS is basically the unsung hero working 24/7 in the background. It's the whole reason your heart keeps beating, your lungs keep breathing, and your stomach keeps digesting, all without you ever having to consciously think about it. It is the ultimate multitasker. Okay, so the ANS has two main branches, and honestly, the easiest way to think about them is like the pedals in a car. First up, you've got the parasympathetic system. That's the brake. It's in charge when you're chilling out, promoting that rest and digest vibe. And then you've got the sympathetic system. That's the accelerator. It slams down during stress or exercise, kicking off that whole fight or flight response.
So you have a brake and an accelerator. How do these two systems actually work together when you start your workout? You might think one just turns off while the other turns on. But nope, the reality is so much more elegant. For the longest time, the scientific thinking was pretty simple. When you start exercising, your body just takes its foot off the parasympathetic brake. This lets your heart rate naturally drift up before the accelerator even really gets involved. But here's the thing. Recent research shows that's not the whole story. The brake never actually fully lets go. Instead, both systems are always active, constantly performing this incredible, dynamic balancing act. Researchers actually have a great way to describe this. They call it a seesaw. So when you're at rest, the seesaw is tilted heavily toward the parasympathetic brake in about a 4-to-1 ratio. As you ease into a moderate workout, the brake starts to lift up just as the accelerator gently presses down. Then, at high intensity, that seesaw tips all the way to the other side. Now the accelerator is dominant in a new 4-to-1 balance. The key here is that it's a smooth, fluid transition, not just a clunky switch. Okay, so what happens when you do this day after day, week after week? Well, all that exercise isn't just training your leg muscles or your arm muscles, it's physically remodeling your heart itself. This process is called cardiac remodeling, and you can pretty much think of it as your heart getting a major performance upgrade. It can literally get bigger and stronger, changing its structure to become a way more efficient and powerful engine for your whole body.
But here's where it gets really interesting. These physical changes in the heart can create readings on an electrocardiogram and ECG that might look kind of alarming in a non-athlete, but in a highly trained person, a lot of the time, those are just the signs of a powerful, super well-conditioned heart.
For example, an athlete's heart is just so darn efficient that it often has what's called sinus bradycardia. That's a resting heart rate below 60, and it's simply because its brake system is so strong. Other common signs are a thicker heart wall or left ventricular hypertrophy, which lets it pump with more force. Now, these things could be red flags in some people, but in an athlete, they're often just hallmarks of a highly adapted engine.
So we've covered what happens before and during your workout. But what about after? As it turns out, that cool-down period might just be the most revealing part of the entire session.
It is so easy to finish that last rep, hop off the bike, and just think, I'm done. But from your heart's point of view, the job isn't over. In fact, the few minutes after you stop are just as critical as the workout itself. The way your heart rate comes back down and how its rhythm stabilizes, or maybe doesn't, that tells you a massive amount about your overall heart health and how well your autonomic nervous system is functioning. And get this is a huge takeaway from the research. Those little irregular heartbeats, doctors call them ventricular ectopy, if they show up during your recovery period, they're actually a stronger predictor of future health risks than if those same funny beats happen during the peak of your exercise. It just goes to show how vital that cool down really is. Now, this entire incredible system, the seesaw, the remodeling, the recovery, none of it can happen properly without one really fundamental ingredient: proper hydration and the right balance of electrolytes. It all comes down to simple mechanics, really. Water is absolutely essential for your blood volume. When you get dehydrated, your blood literally gets thicker and there's less of it to go around. So what happens? Your heart has to go into overdrive, pumping harder and faster just to get oxygen where it needs to go. And it's not just about drinking plain water. It's about electrolytes. We hear that word all the time, right? Well, these are the minerals that carry an electric charge. You can think of them as a tiny little spark plugs that generate the electrical impulses to make your heart beat in that perfect coordinated rhythm. Let's do a quick roll call of the big three. You've got sodium, which helps kick off the electrical signal for every single heartbeat. Then there's potassium, and its job is to reset the whole system so it's ready for the very next beat. And finally, magnesium is like the great stabilizer, keeping that whole electrical rhythm running smoothly. If you've got an imbalance in any one of these, you can get palpitations, extra beats, or even more serious issues. Okay, let's wrap this all up. So, what have we learned? Number 1, your heart rate is controlled by a dynamic seesaw, not a simple on-off switch. Number 2, consistent exercise literally remodels your heart, and this can lead to ECG readings that look weird but are totally normal for an athlete. 3, your heart's rhythm during recovery is a super powerful window into your health. And finally, none of this works right without proper hydration and those essential electrolytes. You know, your heart is constantly sending you signals during your warm-up, at your peak intensity, and long after you've cooled down. It is an absolutely incredible adaptive engine. So the real question is, are you listening to the story it's trying to tell you?
Today, we're exploring what really happens to your heart's rhythm when you exercise. It's pretty fascinating.
Because it's way more than just speeding faster. It's actually a really intricate performance. So let's get into it.
Think of it like a complex dance, right? And it's all controlled by two opposing forces. So here are the two main players. You've got your brake, the parasympathetic system, and your accelerator, the sympathetic. Right now, just sitting there, your Hertz brake pedal is gently applied. It's the calm before the storm. The second you start moving, your brain basically yanks its foot off that brake pedal. And it's not just a simple switch. No way. These two systems are actively working against each other.
Just look at this. You can see how the whole seesaw of control completely flips as your workout ramps up.
Yep, the accelerator takes over, making sure your muscles get all the oxygen they're screaming for.
Now, if you keep at it, your heart literally gets stronger, becoming a way more powerful and efficient engine.
This can lead to some pretty wild-looking ECGs that are actually just signs of a super fit heart.
But there's a catch. This exercise paradox points to a brief moment of risk during those really tough sessions.
Well, it all comes down to your blood volume and these tiny electrical rock stars called electrolytes.
As you can see, each one has a super specific job, kind of like they're conducting an electrical symphony.
So when you're dehydrated, your heart's in overdrive and its whole electrical system gets thrown out of whack.
Okay, so the cool down, it's not just for your muscles. It's actually a huge deal for your heart.
You know, if your heartbeat gets a little wonky after you stop, that can be a really important sign.
Yeah, it can actually unmask some deeper issues, like an imbalance in your nervous system or structural problems.
A really healthy heart, it bounces back super fast. That brake system just kicks right back in.
So understanding this whole dance gives you powerful clues about your overall well-being. Pretty cool, right?